guys, it's Christine, also known as IvyWinter. Thank you for joining me for another Disney video. Today we're going to talk about 3 things that are disappearing from Disney World this year or within, the year, and how that's going to affect your planning. And so I'm sure if you have been at all paying attention to Disney park news, you'll notice that there are a lot of things that they're changing, unfortunately taking away. Whether that has been exacerbated by the pandemic or not, yes, probably, maybe. But there are 3 things that we're going to see just disappear, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit and how that might affect your planning. So the first thing that is disappearing, actually technically in 2022, but the last day will be December 31st, 2021, is Magical Express. Now, Magical Express is the free transportation from Orlando Airport to your Disney resort. You would sign up for this ahead of time. You would let Disney know what your flight was in. You would get on the Magical Express and it would bring you to your resort free of charge. If you had luggage that needed to be sent to the resort that was checked in your flight, they would do that for you. You wouldn't even have to worry about it. You just put a tag on the luggage and they had someone go pick it up and get it sent to the resort for you and eventually to your room. If you had carry-ons, great, bring it to the huge Magical Express bus, throw it underneath, you're good to go. You got a free ride, great little video, and a pretty magical experience. I think it was always fun for me to take that in, have that be my first experience at Disney. The only real cons to it I found were it's a little bit longer than if you went another way. So, your resort could be number 1 or it could be last when it comes to the drop-off schedule. And so sometimes that would slow you down a little bit, but it's free, right? So I always really enjoyed it for that. So unfortunately, end of this year, it's done. It's gone. It will no longer be something that you can utilize. So what does that mean? And what can you then utilize? Well, one of the arguments that Disney's giving of why they're getting rid of it is because they're saying, oh, well, people are using so many rideshare apps anyway that we're not getting that many people traveling on it. So because of user experience and how that's changing, we're getting rid of it. I feel kind of 50-50 on whether this is actually really the real reason or not, but that's what they're saying. So yes, rideshare is an option. Using an Uber, Lyft, or what have you is definitely always an option. Of course, now you're paying for that. If you are a family, that might be fine. It makes sense anyway. If you're able to split that cost with people that you're traveling with, then great. That's a way to make it a little bit cheaper. I know for me, I'm a little bummed because as a solo traveler, if I'm still coming in solo and, maybe, doing a shared Lyft isn't an option, I'm paying a premium to get to my resort because it's just me. So I'm paying that full cost. Mears, which is the company that basically owned the buses, did say that they're continuing their own transportation. That's not going to change, but it likely won't be free. So that is another thing to look into, to see what Mears ends up doing. But, that's also not going to be a free option. It might be a cheaper option. Mears does do a lot of paid shuttles so they can fit multiple families, together. I would look into that as well. Number 2 thing that is disappearing is complimentary magic bands. These have already gone. As far as I've seen, it was January 1st of this year. So what used to happen was you would book at a resort and you would get free magic bands. That would be for everyone in your party. I have, as you guys can probably see here, a ton of magic bands. Most of these were the complimentary ones. Yes, I have some design ones that I paid for, but I think only 4. I only have 4 that I've paid for. Everything else is complimentary magic bands, ranging from the old version to the 2.0, in all different kinds of colors. And a lot of them still fortunately work after all of these years. And that is important to note. If you are somebody who got magic bands in the past, as long as the battery still works, you can still use those. So even though you might not get a new free band, if you've had them, you're a repeat visitor and it's connected to your account, that's fine. You can use them. So I'm fine to throw one of these on and go. But for a new visitor, this is a huge bummer because I think magic bands are such a great part of the experience, and also was a really smart investment by them because it's a great way to make you spend a little more money. I always joke that you connect the credit card with the pin, and it's very easy to go, oh yeah, I'll have that drink or I'll buy that merchandise, and you just boop, put in your pin, you're done. You don't even think about it, you're not signing anything. It's like dangerous, but was a great move on Disney's part. I think it's such a bummer that you now have to pay for them regardless. So if you just want them to be a part of your experience, you're going to have to pay for them. But they're so convenient, and not just in terms of shopping. I mean, it's getting into the parks, it's getting into your room. Like, it's just a shame that I believe it's going to be $14.99 now for the plain colored ones. Certain designs are more expensive. They always kind of have been. But I would say it's like someone new, that would be a super bummer for me to have that complimentary thing kind of taken away or disappear. It was also just such an exciting thing to like get those in the mail, and you were like, oh man, we're coming up on the trip. It's almost here. Like, here's our magic bands. Get pumped. And now you don't even like get that anymore. So keep that in mind. If you want a magic band and you're expecting it in the mail, it's not going to show up, you need to buy a new one. If you have an old one, as long as the battery works, you can still use it. And the third thing that is disappearing sometime this year, they have not specified yet when, is extra magic hours. Now, they're not totally disappearing so much as being replaced by something else. But what used to be the case was you stayed on property, and certain days of the week, certain parks had extra magic hours, whether morning or evening. So you could see the schedule, and maybe Monday, Animal Kingdom had extra morning magic hours, and then the next day, Hollywood Studios had evening extra magic hours. That is no more. Instead, they're gonna let every single resort guest have an extra 30 minutes in the morning before park opening at any park you want. So I do see this being less confusing, especially for people who have never been or haven't been in a while. It could definitely be confusing to be like, oh, I gotta track which park has what extra magic hours on what day, and maybe plan around that. This definitely allows some more flexibility. The fact that it's any park you desire every single day, if you want to get there 30 minutes before opening, you get an extra 30 minutes in the park. Don't really have to think any harder than that. But I would argue that 30 minutes is not an incredibly long amount of time. Do I think that like the super pro people can make the best use of it? Yes. Do I think the everyday visitor or like the once in a lifetime visitor is necessarily going to make the best of that 30 minutes? No, they're probably going to spend it waiting in line at Starbucks. So I don't foresee it being the most helpful amount of time in the world. I also am really bummed that this means that there's no more evening extra magic hours, which is one of my favorite things. First of all, I'm not a morning person, so how much I'll actually take advantage of the extra 30 minutes, we shall see. But I love evenings at the parks. Now, that's not to say that parks won't have late hours. They likely will, especially in the summer, as they always do. But there was something really magical about staying the extra magic hours when other non-resort guests filter out. And like, there's definitely a lot of resort guests, so it's not like suddenly you have the park to yourself or something, but there was a definite difference in crowd level, and just something really fun about being able to stay those extra hours at night. And so I'm kind of gonna miss that. Like, that that for me is something that was a really big draw. You also got multiple hours. Usually it was something like, I think it was like a couple of hours that extra magic hours was for, or I think at least in the morning it was like an extra hour. It varied. Still much more than 30 minutes and still more than getting stuck with just the morning, experience, I guess. I'll be interested to see how many people take to this, how many people actually maybe like it better than what we used to have. But I admit that I'm being a bit of a curmudgeon about it. I have to wait and see again to like how much I'm gonna take advantage of it. They have not, like I said, given a specific date. It's coming this year. The change is coming this year. We just don't know when yet. So those are the 3 things that are getting eliminated from Disney World, or at least changed greatly, that might impact your planning in the next year or so. I will let you know in the comments below which change is the one that's like kind of bumming you out the most. Is there one thing that you're like, man, I just really loved Magical Express and I don't know what I'm gonna do and I'm just upset about it. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, then like it. If you like me, you should subscribe to make videos every single week. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you want to continue the conversation, there's a great Discord that I have with wonderful, wonderful people, and I will link to that in the description below. If you want to listen to the TTA podcast, where Rob of Midway to Main Street and I talk even more about Disney, I will also link that below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great rest of the day. Bye.